How are you?
All right.
Do you have 5 minutes to kill?
Pardon?
Do you have 5 minutes to kill?
Yeah, what's that?
Okay. I do 5-minute interviews with random people. And I just like to talk about a belief that you hold in your head that you really think is true. And I just ask questions to kind of uncover how you got there.
We can give it a try.
Okay. Cool. Is it okay if I record it?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Eddie, by the way.
Yeah, are you doing this for a course or something?
No.
No?
No, this is just a hobby of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was your name?
Marilyn.
Maryland. Let's see. Oops. I did that. All right. Maryland.
Marylyn.
Lyn.
People have trouble getting it right.
That's okay. Oh no. Okay. All right. So, yeah, like I said, I have 5-minute conversations with people, and about any belief that you want to talk about, and I'll just ask questions to kind of uncover how you concluded it's true and how you came to the belief and stuff like that. So some typical examples of topics would be like, I believe my horoscope description is very accurate. I believe karma is happening. I believe in God. I believe prayer works. I believe in aliens. Stuff like that.
Okay.
So, but the more the belief affects you and you're more confident you are in the belief, those are the more interesting conversations. So, is there any belief?
How did you say that I do believe that prayer works?
Okay. All right, well, we can spend about 5 minutes unpacking that a little bit. Okay. All right. First, I want to get a sense of the confidence level. Ooh, it just got really bright.
Yeah. It's got that early.
I want to get a sense of how confident you are in this belief. I use a scale. 0% is I have all questions, no confidence, and 100% is I have all confidence and no questions.
As far as prayer, I have all confidence that prayers are answered. I'm not saying that every prayer is answered, but I believe that when we're praying in the manner that is not just selfish and all about us, okay? And I believe that the person doing the prayer, so part of the praying action is actually giving it to God. And that's where I think a lot of people don't. I think they pray something, but they still want to control it.
Okay.
Okay, and so that's not really giving it to God. It's kind of like talking to God that, well, this is what I would like, but I'm not really going to give it to you.
Oh,
You know what I'm
interesting.
saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me repeat back what I think you're saying, so you just let me know if I'm understanding it. You're saying that you believe prayer works with high confidence, but not every prayer works because we aren't praying with the right mindset.
Right, or I guess if you wanted to get really analytical, which I hate to analyze prayer so much, but if you're not really doing the action of prayer, the action of prayer is communicating with God, or excuse me, my feeling of the action of prayer is communicating with God and, thanking Him, rejoicing for what He has given us, and communicating our needs, which of course He knows, but He wants us to turn to Him. But if you don't actually really turn to Him and give it to Him, I feel like that's part of the action of prayer, is not just the conversation, but the intent. And the intent needs to be that you give it to Him.
Okay.
So
intent.
to me, that's part of the action of prayer.
Okay.
Got
So
it?
yeah. Okay. So can you give me an example in which prayer worked, where the intent or the action of prayer and the intent was correct?
I think a lot of times, okay, like this this particular thing I noticed years and years and years and years and years ago. This has been like almost 4 decades ago. And I lived in another town, had two newborn children, or not two newborns, one newborn, one was about 2. And my husband was working in another town, and we needed to sell our home. Okay, and
That's stressful.
Yeah, this was in very, very early 80s.
Okay.
And the market had really changed and of course we wanted to move so we could all be together. I mean, my husband drove back home every day, but it added hours to his trip and everything. And I remember, praying about it, because you can't really go out and get more people. And I read a scripture in the Bible. I forget even what it was, but it spoke to me a lot. And just in prayer, take care of this for us. And it was really interesting because the next day, the mortgage company called that we had the mortgage with, because we were looking at it, was there any way that we could go ahead and move to this other town and basically have a second mortgage so we could go ahead and get something else, and stuff. Well, they called and said, we would like to look at basically buying the house from you. They had just been to seminars where they would turn and buy back homes that had the low interest rates, and because it would basically cost them. So we were like the first one that this mortgage company tried to do, and they came out and that whole deal decided to go through. And it's not something we knew about and we were driving for, and yet just the prayer of help us get this house sold, help us move. I felt that was very much an answer to prayer. There's times in my life where it's provide work, and work comes from an area that I didn't know, I didn't expect. Trying to think. There's a lot where I just get peace of mind, and I think that comes when you are able to go ahead and give it to God and not be what I call taking the steering wheel back.
Yeah. Okay. So then in that example of selling the house, and you made that prayer, and the next day someone contacted you about buying it, and you were the first one they reached out to. For you, that was confirmation that the prayer worked. If it may have turned out differently, let's say, hypothetically, let's say you prayed and you didn't hear that response, or it took way longer than usual, and you had to reach out and do a lot of work yourself to get it done. If that would have happened, would you have concluded that the prayer maybe didn't work?
I understand your question and where you're going, and I think I probably, first thing I do is I look more at myself, and was I really giving it to God and stuff to handle, or was it me saying, Lord, help do this, and I'm going to direct it this way by doing this and this and this, so I admit that what is it, a lot of times you just need to sit back and be still, and so I understand your question, and I'm going to say that a lot of times I turn and look more back, like, was I giving it to him?
Yeah, like, are you doing it correctly?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Let's say that in a time where you were pretty sure you were doing everything correctly, and your heart was in the right place, and your intent was to give it to God. And whatever the example is, if maybe it didn't result in what you were asking about, is there a way for you to figure out the difference between maybe you doing it wrong and it not working? How would you differentiate?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking, and I don't know that there is really a way of differentiating, because kind of where my mind went when you were asking that is we don't always get the results that we want. That if there's maybe a different result, maybe, was that because I didn't get the result I wanted? Was that because I didn't give it over to him, or was that actually his answer to the prayer? Is that kind of what you're asking? No?
Well, a little bit. I guess I'm asking, how would we go about determining if the prayer is working or if we are doing it wrong, or if God had other plans? Like, how do we tell?
Know? And I think that more just comes with your relationship with God, your faith, and your belief. It's not something that I think you can necessarily dissect and say, well, no, you didn't get an answer, or you got this answer that's not what you were wanting because you did this or you didn't do that. I think you have to have faith and communicate and just kind of stay open to his guidance, so that you're not always just looking where you're wanting the road to go and stuff. So I don't know if that really answers your question. It's kind of like what I think I am hearing from you is, if you don't get an answer, or if you get an answer that's other than what you were asking for, then is there a way to determine, was it because you wouldn't let go or for some other reason? And I don't think there's necessarily a way to determine that. I think that's more like your relationship with God, and you can kind of pray and see and learn. And but definitely I don't think you could analyze it on somebody else.
Okay.
I feel that everybody's communication with God and their relationship with God is really between them and God, that an outside person can't necessarily judge it.
Okay. We went over our 5 minutes.
Okay.
I just have a couple more questions and we'll wrap it up, so I appreciate you talking with me. Let's just assume that the prayer, it wasn't necessarily how you were doing it, or some other way, some other result, or how do I ask this? Let's assume that the prayer is actually not working. Do you have a way to determine that? Like, how would you go about figuring out if it wasn't working?
If the prayer wasn't working, I mean, pretty much you pray, and something I've just learned in the last year or so is you pray, and then you go forward as if your prayer is answered. You just believe it that much, and you go forward. And so it's not necessarily a sitting around waiting and watching for that prayer to be answered. It's prayer and communication with God and going forward. And on down the line, you can kind of look back and go, oh yeah, wow, maybe I was asking for the wrong thing. Maybe I was trying to direct that one. So it's, like I say, it's not a waiting and watching thing and check off, okay, God answered that prayer. It's praying and believing and going forward. And then it's not till on down the road that I often see, what the results were.
Okay. I'm going to read back what you said and just let me know if I'm understanding correctly. You're saying that if you have a prayer, if you make a prayer and it seems like it may not have have happened, or been answered, you don't have a way to determine that it's not working, but if you give it enough time, you'll find a way to discover that it did work.
That it did work, or that what you were praying for, you were still trying to control and direct, and that kind of what I call the action of prayer wasn't really complete if you're not giving it over.
Okay. I think I understand. So I guess a more specific question is, what would be a result that you could say, okay, that didn't work? What are we looking for?
Well, I mean, of course, if you do
like
ridiculous, what I call ridiculous prayers, well, let him die in a fiery car crash, that
right.
kind of thing and stuff. But
I guess my question is, do you have a way? Is there a way to find out if it didn't work?
If it didn't work.
Is there a method we can apply?
I don't think there's necessarily a method. Like I say, it to me, prayer is more than just the words. It's the whole action, and to figure out if it didn't work. I think sometimes if people are trying to get specifically something and they see it's not coming, that they will look and question, and sometimes they can see it was actually answered in a different way other than how they specifically thought it was going to be, and other times for them it goes as an unanswered prayer, and you're kind of saying, is there a method for determining why? And I think that's just more the person searching their soul and their communication with God to see.
Yeah. Why is definitely a harder question, but I guess I'm trying to focus on do we even have a way to determine that it's not working? And I guess the follow-up question to that is, if we don't have a way to discover if a prayer isn't working, is it possible that it's not working and we just simply have no way to determine it?
That's a pretty good question, yeah. And I think a lot of this really just comes down to people's relationship with God, because I admit, when I think of, a method to figure out something, my mind goes closer to scientific stuff and methods of figuring out stuff, and I don't feel like that you really apply that somewhere that is faith involved.
Oh,
okay. Does that kind of answer a question, son?
Yeah, so
and I'm sorry, I'm starting to get eaten up.
Yeah, because we can't determine if it's working, or if it's not working, then it's not in the realm of like science stuff to determine.
In a way, it's not analytical. Can you really analyze it?
Okay. So, last question, and I'm done. I apologize. If prayer working is one of those things where we just have to have faith, and we can't really determine if it's not working, is 100% confidence the accurate spot to be?
Well, and see, I did put some qualifiers in there. I have 100% confidence in prayer, and then I went on to describe what I consider the action of prayer, and that's truly giving it over to Him. And I believe that if you truly give it over to Him, you're going to get an answer to prayer. You may not get necessarily what you want, but you're going to get an answer. If you're asking for the tree to be green and instead the leaves turn orange, that could be the answer to the prayer, but it could be that it's because there is more for you to see and learn. That you wanting to direct it to be green may not be the power that you're supposed to be trying to take on.
Oh, I think I know what you're saying. So,
Kind of like, be careful what you pray for.
Yeah. If all those qualifiers are checked, and you're doing it the way you believe it's going to work, is every result a yes to the prayer?
Is every result a yes? I'm okay. I think I'm figuring out what you're saying. Just like if the leaves were orange instead of green, is that an answer to prayer? Is everything that happens an answer to prayer? I believe you're going to get an answer, and it may take you a while to see it or to recognize it if it's not the specific answer you're wanting. You know, but I believe that you're going to get an answer. Now, the leaves being orange, was that the answer, or was that something else that happened and then the leaves are going to turn green? You know, I don't know. That's in the person's relationship with God and their communication.
Interesting. I'm trying to understand what you mean by the leaves. So, like, are you saying if you pray for the leaves to be orange?
Well, basically, you know, I was just coming up with something that it was kind of odd. Like if you're, you know, let's say it's fall, but you've got a party coming, and oh, that one thing was so beautiful. I want those leaves right there green, and Lord, here's the reason why it would look so great and all this, and instead, those turn orange and the rest of the tree is green. I don't know. You know, I was just pulling that out as some kind of odd thing to ask for.
Yeah.
And I guess kind of what I was saying is like, you know, give me a candy bar, and if you get a you know, and this is silly, you know, but if you get a steak instead of a candy bar, it doesn't mean that it's a not answered prayer. He's providing for you, but maybe not what you're specifically directing.
Yeah. So, yeah, you could come up with prayers that there's just, I see what you're saying. Can you think of any prayer that you could point to a result that says that didn't, like, how do I say it? If you can think of a very sincere prayer, a very real prayer that's maybe happened in your life. If you can, like, for example, the selling of the house. If when you prayed that you can get help selling that house, is every result a yes to the prayer? So, like, if it's a month down the road, a year down the road, not selling it ever, burning down, what can we point to go, okay, that wasn't a yes?
Yeah. And kind of what I'm getting you're saying is, do I get a result different than what I'm expecting?
Is there any result that would conclude that it didn't work?
That it didn't work.
Is every result a yes?
Oh, I don't think every result is a yes. And I'm trying to think, not that drastic as far as the house taking 6 months, a year, whatever to sell, which it was interesting because when the mortgage company took it, you know, and stuff, it was 18 months before they resold it. So isn't that interesting? But I know there have been some answered prayers that later on I kind of sit back and grin and go, I see the direction this went. I see it different, and I'm sorry I can't remember them right now.
That's okay.
It's been more in this last year and stuff. But anyway, I'm going to get on and quit being eaten by bugs and have fun with your hobby.
All right, thank you so much. What did you think about the talk?
What did I think about the talk? I'm a talkative person, and I like to, you know, share ideas with people and stuff. And I don't mind being questioned on things because it makes you think a little deeper and, like you say, think about what do you really believe. So I enjoyed the talk.
Okay, cool.
All right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good day.